Welcome to the course, Reduce Stress Fast. This is just a course that is about being able to have some excellent tools, excellent resources that can get you to reduce your stress really fast. In my work as an organizational psychologist, I get a lot of clients with stress. And I realized very quickly that until actually we can get some of the stress symptoms under control, a lot of the real work that we want to get to underneath, what lies underneath the stress, it's hard to get to it. So my first priority when a person works in the door is to seriously reduce the stress symptoms they have. So this is all about reducing stress fast. And this does not solve the problems that you're going to have to work on in another way. This is about reducing the stress symptoms to relieve the stress symptoms quickly. Okay, thanks. So let's start by talking about what is stress. Stress can be defined as a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. In a way, it's actually the reality is that we're facing challenges, we're facing difficulties that we're finding difficult to cope with. And actually, I love the word stress, like I love words like resilience, because they're borrowed from material science and engineering, etc. Because, for example, I got this here, my little clicker, and I'm putting some stress on it. It's straining, and if I put enough stress on it, it will break. And the bottom line is actually, just like a bridge or a metal beam or a wooden beam faces an amount of stress and strain, we face mental or emotional strain, psychological strain, when life is difficult, when circumstances are difficult. A lot of the time, this can come from something work-related, but also in our personal lives too, things can be stressful. But a lot of people I work with, it's work stress, it's job stress, that's the issue. So let me give you a nice definition for job stress that I think really works well. Palmer and Cooper and Thomas in 2004 came with this definition. They said it ultimately is the harmful physical and emotional responses that occur when the requirements of the job do not match the capabilities, resources, and needs of the worker. So again, if you think about it, if I put more strain or stress on this than it can cope with, it breaks. So we experience stress that is detrimental for our health, harmful physical and emotional symptoms. This happens when the stress is too much, where we don't have the resources to cope with it, where we don't have the capabilities, when it becomes too much for us. And this leads to a model that I really like that I will talk about later, which is the resource demands model, which says there should be a balance between resources and demands that are placed on us. And I'll get to that later. But firstly, when we have a definition that involves the harmful physical and emotional responses, then it's worth saying, okay, how does stress affect the body? This is actually one of the things that I think is really, really important to talk about, because sometimes people are just busy and they say, oh, I'm stressed. But in reality, they're just busy. But as a psychologist, for me, a person is only stressed when I can really see that they have some very clear and concrete symptoms. So let me describe some of the symptoms that one will find in a person who's stressed. And of course, depending on the level of stress they're experiencing, these symptoms will be different. But let me just look at these symptoms real quick. So let's talk about stress symptoms. Like I mentioned, you really can't say someone is stressed unless they actually have stress symptoms. It's not enough just to be busy or to think that life is hard and things are difficult. You actually have to have stress symptoms. So I like to divide stress symptoms into physical, mental, and behavioral. Yeah. And actually, if we're talking about someone in a workplace, then sometimes a group of people can get stress symptoms, or the organization can actually give signs that there are a lot of people with stress in it. But let's just take the individual right now. There can be physical symptoms like headaches, physical symptoms like pain in your stomach, pain in the shoulders and muscles and different things because there's tension. So there's a lot of physical things that we experience. Our sleep can be affected, our digestion can be affected. We can experience dizziness, we can experience nausea. So there's some physical things. Some people feel pressure in the chest, high heart rate. So these are some physical things people can experience. Sweaty palms, sometimes even shaking, a whole bunch of physical things people can experience. Mentally, we can be affected by poor memory, forgetting stuff, also having difficulty making decisions, having difficulty to concentrate on a task. Everyone's tried this thing where if your mind's on something else, if you read a bit of a passage, you forget it again immediately. But imagine being in this state almost constantly where firstly, you're straining to concentrate at this, but also even what you read, for example, you forget again. So these will be some of the cognitive signs. People can sometimes experience just this general sense of being overwhelmed. They have difficulty keeping their perspective in things. They have all these emotional stuff too, if we could group them together with mental, that they're much more irritable, they're much more sensitive. It's easier for them to start crying and stuff like that. So there's a lot of emotions involved, there's a lot of psychological stuff involved, yeah? But then also we can talk about their behavior. So behavior, when people are stressed, their behaviors change. Some people eat more than normal, some people eat less than normal because they lose their appetite. Some people, what they find is that they smoke more than normal, others drink more than normal. Every day, I need a beer to relax, I have a glass of wine with my dinner just to relax, but their behavior changes. Some people, it's all about relationships where they withdraw. They don't feel as social anymore. Before they were like, yeah, let's go out, let's do this, let's do that. But now they're feeling less social. They're more quiet. They don't feel like talking as much. They don't feel like doing the things that normally would be quite enjoyable that they would go out and do. So these are some examples of how an individual can experience some stress symptoms. Yeah? So let me move to the next thing. So what is it that causes stress? Like I said, I like this model, the demands and resource model from Bakker and Dimiruti. And basically, I use the analogy of a battery, especially we all have mobile phones today, where if we run out of battery, there's nothing to do about it. You got to just charge it. You can't get it to keep going. You can't squeeze anything else out of that phone. You just have to charge it up. And that's my way of describing how we are as human beings, that there needs to be a balance between how much we charge up our energy and how much we use it up. Where anything that drains your energy will be a demand, because it makes demands on you and it affects your energy levels, and anything that it gives you energy is a resource. So if it charges up your batteries, it's a resource. If it drains your batteries, it's a demand. And we can have all kinds of demands, Sometimes they're mental demands. We're worried about money, That worrying drains our energy. That's a mental demand. But if we receive an extra bonus, we get excited, we're happy, that becomes a resource. Suddenly our thinking, our joy, our happiness because we got an extra bonus becomes something great. It produces some positive emotions in us instead of emotions that drain energy. If we have a positive attitude to life, optimists, that's a resource. But if we're pessimists and always thinking negative, that's a demand. Socially, some people give us a lot of energy. Friends, colleagues, we enjoy ourselves with them, good working together, social life, working well. Great, that's a resource. Major positive resource, actually. But if we have friends or colleagues that drain our energy, if you have a boss that is always telling you off or something like that, it's going to drain your energy. If you've got customers giving you a hard time all the time, that's going to drain your energy. You're just going to want to run away from this. So these are the things, they can be demands and they can be resources. And when these are out of balance, when the amount of demands you face, the amount of energy being drained from your battery is higher than the amount of resources you have available to cope, to give you good feelings, positive responses, then that's psychological strain and tension, stress, it begins to happen. And the longer it continues, the more difficult it gets. And here's the reality. Short-term stress is fine. There's nothing damaging or harmful about it. But long-term stress, your body just was not designed to run at that level, to be stressed, to be strained and burdened for such a long time. When your body releases hormones and does all kinds of things because of stress, after a while, it starts to wear you down. There's hormones involved, like a hormone called cortisol, which again, short-term, it's fine. It allows more energy to be produced in the body for your fight or flight response. But cortisol in the body for a long time starts to become damaging for the body, even the brain, which is why the cognitive function gets affected. Let me share another model with you. The transactional stress model is one of my favorite models because it shows how much stress is a lot about perception. Of course, there are things that are stressful, there can be some external factors that are difficult, but internal factors, the way you think, that's also important. So for example, with the transactional model from Lazarus, it says that when we're faced with a difficult situation, we make an assessment. Is there a threat here or not? If we assess that there's no threat, if this situation is not that difficult, if it's something we can cope with, then no problem. But if we assess that it's a threat, then the next phase of assessment comes in. And the first one is we have to check that we can cope, Either we cope or we don't cope. So first we can say we're coping, or number two, we say we're not coping. If we say we're coping, then no problem. Everything cruises fine. In fact, it can be positive stress. It can give some growth. But if we say we're not coping, that's when stress kicks in. That's when this strain comes in. That's when the battery becomes more and more drained until it runs out of juice, and we're going to find it difficult to cope. So negative stress comes about because firstly, we assess a situation as stressful, but secondly, we also assess that our ability to cope with it is limited. We find it overwhelming. We don't think we can cope. And this gives some fascinating opportunities actually, because I always encourage people, so if you're going to work on reducing your stress, there's two levels. The one is to look at the situation. Are there things I can change in this situation that it no longer needs to become a threat? Or can I work with myself? And there's some things that I can do to give me the ability to cope. Even just the perception of having the ability changes things. So maybe someone's sitting there and nothing's changed, but just suddenly you're sitting there with this psychologist, like I often do with people, and help them to see, actually, you've coped with something like this before, you're probably going to cope again. And give them that motivation, give them that encouragement to say, okay, give this a shot. You can do it. Immediately something happens. Because even though maybe they assess the situation as difficult, they actually now assess that they have enough resources to cope with it. Therefore, stress is reduced. So that's the transactional model from Lazarus and Folkman. Let me just go on to talk a little bit more now about how we can reduce stress fast, what interventions we can do to reduce stress really fast in our bodies. So now, let's get to the part that you've been waiting for. How can you reduce stress symptoms fast? Like I said earlier, the most important thing when someone's having a tough time, and maybe they're even off work because they're on sick leave because of stress, the most important thing actually before anything else is to reduce the stress symptoms. And the reason why that is, one, is that this person actually is having some very unpleasant feelings, because stress symptoms are very unpleasant and they're very worrying, and they can affect the person very badly in so many ways, and they're finding it very difficult to function in their daily life. Secondly, it's about helping that person to regain their perspective so they can begin to work on the things they need to work on. Before those stress symptoms are reduced, their cognitive function is not working. So no matter what clever words I come with as a psychologist, I can't help them. So got to reduce stress symptoms as fast as possible. That's the number one priority. Then we can begin to look about why did they become stressed in the first place, and what can they do, what life changes they need to make, what adjustments they need to make in order to be able to avoid stress in the future. So what are my interventions? What are the things that I try and get a client doing as fast as possible to reduce symptoms? Well, I've got this little model, this little triangle that I developed based on cognitive therapy and the cognitive diamond, and it's about thoughts, feelings, body, and emotions. And say, okay, I always say we have to attack the stress from different directions. It's a war against stress symptoms. So we need to attack them. We have to attack them from the area of our thoughts, working on our thoughts. We have to attack it and develop behaviors that are helpful from the area of our body, and use exercise and stuff, and I'll get to that soon. And then, of course, our feelings, and our relationships, the social support we can get, they can give us good feelings and good connections. That all helps. And I'll explain all this in a minute, but just saying that these three areas, the thoughts, the feelings, and the body. So mind, emotions, and body. And if we attack from these three directions, I can almost, I say almost just to be careful, but I can almost give a guarantee that no matter how bad your stress symptoms are, you can experience significant reduction within a few days. And honestly, if you don't notice any difference within a week, then I'll be seriously concerned something else is wrong and it's not just stress. But really, I've had people come in with very serious stress symptoms, that have not been able to work. And by working in this multi-directional way, attacking from different directions, they've been able to reduce their stress symptoms really fast so they can begin to regain control over their lives. So let's go through these three areas real quick. Firstly, thoughts. The things that I recommend to people are, for example, mindfulness. Mindfulness has become more and more popular. It's a form of meditation, if you don't know what it is. And it's about learning several different things, but among other things, it's got many principles, but among other things, mindfulness teaches you how to just be neutral. Relate neutral to situations, but actually relate neutral to your own thoughts. Because it's our reaction to our thoughts. There's a quote in cognitive therapy that talks about it's not things that disturb us, but it's our reactions to things. It's not our thoughts that disturb us, but it's our reactions to these thoughts. It's not situations that disturb us, it's our thoughts and our reactions. So mindfulness tries to teach us to not be judging our thoughts, judging things as good or bad all the time, but being very neutral. Mindfulness also tries to teach us about being present and having focused attention in what you're doing, because that's one of the challenges. When you're stressed, your mind wanders away, think about all sorts of things that are not helpful. But actually, I call mindfulness sometimes a type of attention training, because you just train how you put your attention on your breath or sound or your body, whatever the exercise is, and whenever your mind drifts off, you just return. So it's teaching you in a way to regain control of your mind, where you learn to focus. You learn to focus your attention. They talk about the monkey mind, because the mind hops all over the place. Mindfulness wants to train that monkey to be still. You can say it that way. So mindfulness is very, very good. One of the other things is finding meaning. Anything that helps to find meaning and purpose for that individual. Tasks that give meaning and purpose. Relationships that give a sense of meaning and purpose. Focus on that, That will help that person with their thoughts. Because one of the things, again, people experience is like, oh, what's the point of it all when I get stressed like this, for example, with their job? Focus on learning. Some people get excited by learning, getting new insights, So reading books, watching documentaries, taking online courses, anything that boosts your learning. Now, people are different. That's why I always have so many different things for them to try. I always say it's like a menu at a restaurant. Choose what works for you. Try out a few different things. Choose what works for you. Yeah. So people who are into learning, gaining insight, self-actualization, self-improvement, they need some form of learning, listening to podcasts, reading books. They need something that gives them a mental boost. That helps. Reframing is another thing. That's one of the most fascinating things. Don't have time to go into a lot of detail here, but it's basically a cognitive therapeutic method of what they call cognitive reappraisal. It's just changing the way you think about something. And reframing is fantastic. I had this client the other day because she managed to change something around and see it more positive. I had a client where she was a bit frustrated that her boss was very far away, was never present. Her boss was even in another country. But at one point she just said, she did this fantastic reframing where she said, actually, maybe I shouldn't complain so much. Maybe it's positive because the other departments, they've got some new bosses that they don't like and that stress them out. So maybe it's better not to have a boss present all the time than to have one that actually is giving you a hard time and you're finding difficult to work with. So reframing is a lot about changing the way you think about situations. It's like I mentioned earlier, just by changing your perception of yourself as someone who can cope better with a situation, you can feel better, you can reduce stress. By looking at the situation and say, okay, this is not a problem, but it's a challenge that can be overcome, for example, that can also help. Having a problem-solving mindset, where instead of thinking, oh no, I can't do anything about this, oh no, poor me, but saying, actually, let me look for solutions, let me think solutions here, let me think possibilities, that can help too. And so lastly, having a positive mental attitude that is based on, for example, gratitude. I always give people gratitude exercises. You know, a lot of people talk today about these 21 day of gratitude exercises where you wake up every day and write down 3 things that you're grateful for. You know, I often give my clients the task, write 3 things every day, and either a person, a thing, or a situation that you're thankful for in your life. And then in the evening, look at something specific from that day, and again, try and find 3 things, persons or situations that you're grateful for from that day. Gratitude helps us to focus on the mind of positive, because partly what happens when your brain gets stressed, it just notices the negative. It just notices those things that didn't work. But with gratitude, you train the brain to focus on positive things too. Let me go to the next one, which is looking at feelings. And I couple that with relationships, because relationships give us good feelings, yeah? So social support, that's one of the things that's important. Find good people that can support you, either by talking to you or giving practical help. Doesn't matter if it's your work colleagues or in your private life, you know, with friends and family. Actually, social relationships, social support is very important for you. There's some interesting research about social support, and I remember when I was writing my thesis on stress management, I was so shocked that article after article, research after research points to social support. So today there is no question about the power of social support to improve well-being, and that includes stress. For example, having a hug for more than 20 seconds reduces stress in you through releasing oxytocin in the body, which works against cortisol, which is a stress hormone, thereby reducing stress. So relationships, good supportive relationships, mean a lot for our mental health and for stress. Having hobbies that release positive feelings in you is really important. I mean, hobbies and other activities that we enjoy, there's such cheap ways of getting positive feelings that release all the good positive hormones and that work against all the stress hormones, etc. But often people neglect their hobbies when they're feeling stressed. That's where they try and save time. But actually, it's very important that you prioritize your hobbies and your activities that you do in your free time, because they give you these positive feelings, you know. They give you all kinds of pleasurable experiences. That is really important for your well-being, yeah? Use your strengths. Focus on your strength, use your strength. Having experiences where we feel success. Oh, I've just done this. Doing things that we're good at makes us feel good. When we have a success, it makes us feel good. And it can be a little thing. It's like make a list of tasks, do them and feel, yay, I went through my list today. Make a realistic list, otherwise it gets a bit depressing. Or look at the other way around, saying, okay, if I'm good at playing football, then let me play football. And when I score a goal, I'll be like, yes. Or I'm good at painting, yeah? Do some painting and think, yeah, that's satisfaction. Again, it releases all the right hormones in your body and gives the right feelings that will work against the stress. Visualization. Now, visualization can actually fit under thinking, or it can fit under feeling. It doesn't matter. But visualization, this is one of my favorite tools, because visualization can help you create the optimal feelings that you need in any situation. So relaxation exercises where you visualize walking through the park, or lying in a beach, or a walk through the forest. It relaxes. So visualization, the power of visualization is actually that our brain, it doesn't make as big a distinction between reality and fantasy as we might think. So whatever you're visualizing in your mind becomes reality. I often do this little experiment. My clients say, close your eyes and think of the best holiday you've ever been on for a minute or so. And just notice the feelings it releases in you. People start smiling, you see them relax and feeling this warmth again. And of course, if you do the opposite and say, think of the worst day you've had at work in your life, it's the opposite. So visualization is a way to control your thoughts and to create the optimal mental state that you need, creating these positive feelings by thinking about positive stuff. Sometimes in a visualization you can even think about when you were young and playing around doing stuff and what music you like and the music playing. Just go on a fantasy journey in your own mind that produces the positive feelings that you need. There's a lot of exercises out there that you can find, And then laughter. It sounds like a really, really simple thing, but laughter, again, it releases the right stuff in the body. It releases the right hormones that will work against stress hormones like cortisol. And sometimes my wife laughs at me, but if I come home after a hard day, I watch some stand-up comedians and just laugh, and I can really feel the difference. The whole body is shaking and the right hormones are being released and positive feelings are happening in my body. But just something as simple as watching a comedy show or a stand-up comedian or something, again, it works against the stress. Yeah, so that's another angle. Through our feelings, through our relationships, this can help us. The last thing is the body. The body is the other dimension we can use to attack the stress, as I call it. Firstly, prioritize your sleep. And I know a lot of people find it difficult to sleep when they're stressed. But at least prioritize it. Make sure you have the time allocated to sleep, even if you're struggling to fall asleep. Through visualization, actually, you can help your sleep and breathing exercises, etc. But prioritize your sleep. These days, they talk about sleep hygiene, where it's like, get away from screens at least an hour before you go to bed, because the blue light tricks your brain into thinking that it's still daytime and it's not sleep time yet. Don't drink too much coffee before you go to bed. There's a bunch of stuff we can do that can help our sleep to be better, but prioritize your sleep. Of course, nutrition, like I mentioned there, if you're drinking coffee late into the night, you're going to struggle to fall asleep. If you're taking a lot of sugars and stuff like that, that can also affect your stress levels. So watch what you eat, drink a lot of water, avoid coffee late at night, These things are really important so you can have more of the good stuff that helps you to rest and doesn't overwork your system and your digestive system, etc., that will keep you up at night or whatever. Take more care about what you eat, especially when you're stressed. Exercise. Exercise is a gift. There's so much research showing that exercises can help with our mental well-being, not just our physical well-being, but it can help with depression, it can help with stress, it can help with anxiety, it can help with a bunch of different things, yeah? And there's some recommendations about half an hour a day, every day, or at least 2.5 hours of moderate exercise a week. But one of the researches has shown, one research has shown that strength training in particular is good for reducing stress because it burns up cortisol, you know. Some forms of exercise aren't so great, you know. Apparently long distance running, that's not so good. That will actually stress the body again. But actually shorter periods of exercise, and for example, especially strength training, is very good at burning away cortisol, stress hormone, you know. And of course we know that exercise can give you a buzz, endorphins get released, etc. So exercise, again, I cannot emphasize enough how effective exercise is. It will help sleep too. And you know, sometimes, you know, people think, oh, okay, but I can't go to the gym, etc. Even a walk, take a brisk walk, just do something, become physically active. The way I see it, if the body is in the fight or flight response, it's ready to do something active. So if we don't do something active, then all these adrenaline and cortisol is just sitting around there not knowing what to do. But at least if we go and burn it off, you know, as we know from the old days, they'll say, go out and chop wood if you're angry or something, or like, go do something physical. Because it actually burns up some of the hormones that have been released into your system because it expects you to be active when you're in this fight or flight mental state. Relaxation exercises. Oh, any kind of relaxation exercises will be good for you, you know. There's something called progressive muscle relaxation. You know, that's one of the best documented ways of reducing stress through relaxation, where you go through the body tensing up for 5 seconds, for example, and then relaxing for 10 seconds. Then you take the next body part, tense and relaxing after 5 seconds. Yeah, and you can go through a body bit by bit and doing that. And what I love about progressive muscle relaxation is that not only is it relaxing you because of this physical thing, you know, getting the whole parasympathetic system to work with you to relax, but also it distracts you because you concentrate, say, okay, I'm going to make a fist and then I'm going to relax. I'm going to bend my arm, 5 seconds, take a breath in, also relax. So it's distracting you as well from all these thoughts that drain your energy. Lastly is breathing exercising. Again, breathing exercise is a way to trick the brain into relaxing even when you're feeling tense, you know, because something as simple as taking a shorter breath in and a longer breath out, again, will activate the parasympathetic system that will make you relax more and take you out of fight or flight mode. So there's many different breathing exercises there. There's the 7-11 where you take in a breath for 7 seconds and then out for 11. Some breathing exercise focuses on where you're breathing in your body, because for example, when you are tense, you breathe much more shallow and up here by the chest. But when you're more relaxed, you're using the diaphragm a lot more and the stomach's moving. So there's a lot of breathing exercise you can learn now that can help you to relax. So here's my summary at the end now. First priority when you're feeling stressed, and a lot of these exercises you can also use to prevent stress before it gets too bad, is to reduce the stress symptoms. Then you can begin and start working on other stuff later. Stress is bad for you long term. It just cannot be good for you to be running at this high tempo, this high rate, this fight or flight mental state for too long. So reducing your stress fast, relieving stress symptoms quickly, that's the number one priority. And like I said, I have this holistic integrated approach that says work from these different directions. Like I said, inspiration from cognitive therapy, but I've never had a client that's not been willing to listen to me and work from these 3 different directions and really give it a shot that has not experienced significant reduction in their stress levels. So that was it. This is how you reduce stress fast. This is how you relieve stress symptoms quickly. Go out, do it. There's a lot of information. Anything I've mentioned there, I know for the sake of brevity, I've not gone into a lot of details on all these different points, but just Google stuff. There's YouTube videos, there's articles, there's blogs. Anything I've mentioned there, just go out, Google it, try it